So we've made lots of videos on how to make flowers, but how about something to put your flowers in? Today I'm going to show you weaving stitch. Hi everyone, Sarah here from Sarah Homfray Embroidery. Got Ginger Cat with me for a little bit anyway because it's very hot today, so I don't think he's going to hang around. So I'm going to come back to this. I'll show you this a little bit later. We'll come back and talk through this because today I just want to show you the weaving stitch, which is the stitch I've made the basket out of. So stick around to look at this and a few other samples I've got as well. And I do just want to mention, if you want to have a go at the basket project, I have made you some little basket shapes. This is a free PDF available for you to download from the free stuff page of our website. The link is in the description below this video if you want to go and download that and have a go at this little project. So this is the stitch that we are going to have a go at. You don't just have to make baskets with this. It just happens to make a really good basket if you need a basket. But it's a really good filling stitch. So if you've got a shape that you want to fill in, and you can fill in just about any shape with this as well. So really weird shapes that you can do really easily with this stitch. So just think of it as a filling stitch, and this is one way to use it. So I'm going to run through the materials that I'm using quickly. So I'm going to do this with a stranded cotton. And I'm going to use all 6 strands for this. You can use whatever you like. The thicker the thread, the bigger the weave will look. If you go really tiny with your threads, it's going to take ages to weave it and it's going to be very fiddly. So just think maybe a little bit more about having a little bit of a thicker thread for this. It looks a little bit better. I'm using a variegated one because you can see how that comes out. That is that colour there. That is a DMC colour variations, and it's 4140. And you can see how that colour has come out, so that's really great. So the variegated threads work really well for this. If you don't know about variegated threads and what they are, you can check out this video. I'll stick it up in the corner here if you want to go and have a look at that and see what those threads are all about. And because I'm using 6 strands, I'm going to use some fairly big needles. So I'm going to use 2 different kinds of needles for this. I've got one with a sharp point on the end. So this is a chenille needle I'm going to use for this, chenille 22 for 6 strands. I found works quite nicely. And then I'm going to switch because we're going to actually weave over and under to a tapestry needle. So it's got a blunt end so that we can weave through without picking up any of the stitches. That's the same size. That's a 22 as well. So I've got the 2 needles that I'm going to use. And you can use lots of different kinds of materials as well for this. So I'll show you the basket at the end, as I mentioned, which I have actually done in silk ribbon. And so I'll come to that at the end and we'll have a little look at that. So I've drawn myself a little basket, just doing it on a cotton fabric so you can see clearly what I am doing. And I'm going to use another DMC colour variation. So I'm going to try different colours, see how this one comes out. So this is 4130. So it's got these beautiful sort of pinky, orangey brown colours. I think it's quite a good basket colour. And I'm going to fill in this shape. Now I'm going to start in the middle, so we're going to put some stitches straight across and then we come back and we weave through them. So this is actually weaving, we're actually doing weaving, but it's attached to the fabric. We're going to come up and down at the end of the shape, so we won't be able to lift it off the fabric, so we're kind of weaving on the fabric. So I'm going to just start with my starting knot as I usually do. That gets cut off. I'll do my little starting stitches as well. They will get covered up, and I'm going to start right in the middle. Now what we're going to do is lay a grid this way and then we're going to weave through that way. It doesn't matter if you do it the other way round. We could lay them that way and we could weave left to right. Doesn't matter, it's going to all end up being filled. So whichever you find easiest to work. So I'm going to go straight across the other side down on that line. And then I'm going to bring my needle back up on the same side and a little distance away. So don't go right next to it. We want a little bit of room to get the needle in and out. So the sort of width of the thread is quite good. So you can see I'm just coming up a little bit further away there. I'm going to go straight across to the other side. So there's a little bit of a gap in there. The stitches will fill out when we start weaving. So that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to put all of these in all the way up to the top. Because this is stranded, it does come apart a little bit and it's a bit hard to see the different rows. So if you find it doing that, you can just twist the thread up in the needle and then it will not separate so easily. So if you find it is doing that, it might just be worth giving it a little twist just to stop it. And I'm going to go right near the top, so I think I'll get one more in there. Across to the other side. and then I can finish that thread off. I can either weave underneath a couple of the stitches on the back, or I can do those 2 small stitches again. So I'm going to come and fill in the bottom part of this. You don't need to watch me do that because it's exactly the same as the top part. So we want to put all of these threads in across this way first before we can weave back through. So do make sure that you fill in the whole shape before you do the next bit. So I'm going to come and do that now, and then I'll show you how to do the weaving. So I've put all of the stitches in, filled in that whole shape. I'm now ready to go the other shape. So I've started a new thread off, and what I've done now is I've put it in my tapestry needle, so it's got the blunt point, because now we're just going to go over and under all of these rows of stitching. We're just going to weave. So it doesn't matter whether you start over or under, because the next one will be opposite. So I'm just going to go over that one and under that one. And if you just notice how I'm moving my needle, that just makes sure I'm not caught in any of the threads. Don't want it to go through those threads, I want it to go over and under them. So I've gone under that one, over, under. Just move it to make sure it does move. There we go, I've not caught anything. It's a little bit harder where they separated. If you go to the edge, you can see it more clearly. See how I'm poking my needle out of the edge, and I can come back in there and I know that I'm underneath that one. So you can either do it in stages, or you can do a little bit at a time. So let's just do a little bit at a time. So now I'm over that one and I'm under that one, over, under, because I've got that blunt point on my needle. I'm not picking up any unnecessary, not catching that thread unnecessarily. So I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom. Like so. So I want this to be nice and straight. So this is going to set the angle for all the rest of them. So that's why I've started in the middle. If I start at the edge, you can end up going a little bit wonky and your whole basket's gone a bit twisted, or your shape is going to be a bit twisted. So if you just go in the middle, you can see it's nice and straight. I'm just going to take that down at the bottom. I'm just going to take it through the tapestry needle to be fine, but if you can't get it through nice and accurately, you can swap back to the other needle. So that's one row. So I'm going to come straight up next to it now. I'm going to weave back up to the top, and I'm going to go the other way. So I went over that one, so now I'm going under that one. So there's under, over, under, and you can see I'm doing it at the edge. It's a little bit easier. Just make sure that needle moves from side to side over that one. Actually, let's just go through the 2. It's a little bit trickier when you're near the bottom. You've not got so much space, so I'll just do a couple at a time. Make sure you're always doing the opposite to the row before, so you're not weaving. It'll look a bit weird. So back up to the top. So all the way back to the top like so, and you'll find there's a little bit of a gap between them, so you can just then push it over with the needle. You'll find as you get more rows in, they will fill up that space. You can sort of start to see the pattern there. So you could bring in a different colour if you wanted to. You could put a stripe down it. If you wanted to stripe the other way, you'd have to do that when you put these ones in at the beginning. So I could put a stripe in there. I might try that and see what that looks like. So you can mix and change your colours if you want to. You don't have to do it in the variegated. You could just mix lots of different colours. Every time you go to the back of the fabric, so at the top and at the bottom, you can change your colour. So super easy to change. Try not to change your thread in the middle of a row. If you don't have enough to get to the other side, change it before you go back the other way. So I'm just going to keep weaving to the side here. I'm going to go right up to that point. There's no different if you get a small area. You're just going to keep going over and under as much as you can. Might get a little bit fiddly near the edge. You can just push up from underneath. You see my thumb is underneath this. I've got this in a frame so I can work hands-free on it, and I can push it up, and that helps me to get over and under. So just make sure you are doing that and you're not catching the thread. So I'll come back and I'll show you what that looks like, and then I'll just show you quickly how to do the handle of the basket as well if you do want to work this project. So I just want to show you this bit if you're doing an interesting shape. So if it's not a regular shape, if it's not a square or a rectangle, this is going to happen. So I've actually come down to the bottom, and that's as far as I can go there. I'm not going to get another row in, so I'm going to stop here. I'm coming actually down here with this row. So I think I might be able to squeeze that under there. It's getting really tight though. Just about get that one under there. So I'm going to finish that off there. I'm going to go through to the back. Don't forget to go through to the back at the end of every row that you do. And then I'm going to come a little bit higher up my shape. So I think I'll probably get away with that goes under there. So starting about there. So you need to decide where you can start to get another row in, and you need to move your thread to that point, and then you can just carry on with your weaving. So right to the very corner, you'll just get a couple of rows in there. If you've got a shape with a sharp corner, just keep going until you get to the end. You'll get them through, don't worry. And I'm just going back to the top, and I just want to show you quickly how I did the stitch around the handle if you want to do this project. But if you're not doing a basket, you were doing something else, you might want to consider putting an outline around the edge of this shape. It's quite neat, it works quite nicely with that, but if it wasn't being a basket, I think you might want an outline around it. So you can use the one that I'm about to show you, or we do have 5 stitches for outlines, a couple of videos on that if you want to check out a different outline stitch to use. So I'm going to swap back to my sharp needle because now I'm going to stitch through the fabric, so I'll just change from my tapestry back to my chenille. So just going to do a stem stitch up here. I've just marked it with some little dots, and because I'm doing it in the 6 strands as I've used to weave, it'll be a nice chunky handle for my basket. So it's just a forward stitch, little loop to the right, come back up in the middle of the loop, and each stitch overlaps the previous one. We've got videos on how to do this in more detail, but I just wanted to show you how it looked on this basket. If you wanted to have a go at this, this is the perfect stitch for this. I'm just overlapping each one each time. The loop always goes to the same side. I'll do a little bit more so you can see what it looks like. You're a sleepy boy today, aren't you? The heat. So all the way around that shape, and you can see how sort of rope-like that looks and what a great effect that is. So I will go back and I'd finish all of this off now. I'm going to carry on weaving through that. I might just put the stripe through the middle to see what it looks like. So I would do the weaving first, then I would do any of the stitches you want, then I would put an outline around afterwards if I was doing that. So that is the basic weaving stitch. It's very simple to do. It's just a little bit tricky to get over and under, so just make sure you leave enough room, enough spaces in between your first initial stitches so that you can go over and under, and the stitch you can have a lot of fun with. So let's have a look at some other samples of this weaving stitch. It's a good job I've stopped stitching because Ginger Cat's made his way underneath my embroidery frame. So I'm just going to show you this first. So this is my little sampler. So if you watch my videos before, you know I'm a big fan of practicing first, just trying a little bit out, seeing what the stitch does, seeing what the materials do. If you wanted to use a different thread, how does that work when you weave? Maybe avoid a fluffy one now that I think about it, because that's a little bit harder to not get your needle caught. So this is my little sampler trying it out. These were some other stitches I was trying. So I did a little bit here just to see how wide apart they stitches go. I tried a little leaf shape. That works really nicely to fill in a little leaf shape. I did a little heart up here and put again the stem stitch around the outline of that as well, and did that one in 2 colours, so you can see the change of colour. So that it was the same thread going this way, and then I've woven through with a different colour here, so I've made it dark red at the top and orange at the bottom. So you can change your colours, you could put stripes in, you could mix them in the needle, you could do all sorts of different effects, you could try some different types of thread in there as well. That would be really exciting. So just have a little play. If you're not sure what you want to do and you're interested in this stitch, try a few things out and see what that looks like. And this is a little basket completed. So this is the one I showed you initially. And the other thing that you can do with this, I think Ginger Cat might be sitting on it. Oh no, it's not. Is you could put a little bit of felt under it. So I've actually cut that piece out in the same shape as my basket, and I've put a little piece under there, and I've done the weaving over the top. So I did just stitch that down. I just stitched it at the edges. So I did this first. Little stitches from the outside to the inside, stitch that piece of felt down, and that just raises your weaving up a little bit. And then I did my weaving over the top, so I get a little bit of a 3-dimensional effect, which might be really nice for a technique that you're using if you just want to raise it up. You could do a couple of layers if you want to. The needle caught a little bit on the felt. If you're not careful, it gets a little bit fluffy, so just be aware of that when you're doing the weaving, but absolutely fine to do that. And let's bring this one back in now that I showed you briefly at the beginning. So this is the whole thing finished. So I've used a different thread again for this. So for this basket, I've actually used some silk ribbon, and we currently have this one in the shop. This is VF 406, variegated 406, and it's got just a very slight varying colour in it. It goes a little bit darker in some places, so it's quite subtle. And this is a 4mm ribbon, so I had to go at weaving with this, and this really does look like a basket. The thread, and you can just see a subtle colour change at the bottom. I'm not worrying about where those colours come, just let them fall wherever they want to fall. And I've done exactly the same as I've just shown you, but with a silk ribbon instead of a thread. So I've just done those stitches first, weaving through exactly the same. You might want to twist the silk thread up a little bit just to give it a bit of a different texture. It can be quite wide, the 4mm. You could use a 2mm one if you like as well. There's my stem stitch around the top. So the same stitch that I've just showed you in the thread. So I've done my stem stitch in my ribbon, my silk ribbon as well. And then I've added all of these flowers on it. And I think you can agree how fabulous it looks when you put something in the basket. Now, I'm not going to show you that on this time because this video, as I said, is about the weaving stitch. But we've done loads of videos on how to embroider flowers in silk. So we've got these ones here. This is our 5 bouquets. I can't say silk ribbon bouquets here. You could put a little bouquet in your basket. That would look fabulous. There's a couple I've done here that have been in videos before. So I've got a different little button for a basket now. But you can just see all the sorts of things you can do with the silk ribbon technique. It's really wonderful technique if you want to make flowers. Loads of videos on silk ribbon embroidery. And we've also got stitches on embroidered flowers. If you don't want to do silk ribbon, you just want to do hand embroidery. We've got this wonderful bouquet here with lots of different stitches in it. We've got 10 stitches for embroidered flowers. That video is really super popular. That's had over 1 million views. So lots of different videos for you to check out if you want to put some flowers in your basket. So I hope you're inspired to have a go at weaving stitches. A bit more of an unusual one. We've not covered it on the channel before. This is the first time I've done it, so this is the only video you will see it in. And if you want to have a go at some flowers, we'll put them all in a playlist. We'll put them up here for you. You can go and click on that and see how to do lots of different kinds of embroidered flowers. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. We'll see you next time.